Yeah, totally fine. That was so fast. Ugh. Yeah. Yep. And maybe last year too. What's up? Got it. Oop, come on. There we go. All right, let's restart that. You're good. You're good. Gotcha. Okay. 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 Got it. Totals me 1,368. Okay. Well, he's earned it. I'll give him that. Yeah, that sounds right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh yeah. Yep. 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 It sounds so simple on paper. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're much more injured since last time. And we all assumed because of the first half of the season was so difficult that, like, oh, get through this, just survive this, and you can just slide through the rest of it. People were often to say the hardest. I don't know if they had the right sources or not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully it's out of their system now. Yeah, not a whole lot's changed. Ooh. Okay. Oh yeah, and I'll admit this going in, I'm a little more critical than most regarding MLB rules. No. Mm, mm, okay. Hmm. Yeah, closest on the mound. I think I like that more actually. Well, because like I think like, the three you have to build that three beforehand, and you're like, okay, here's my plan. I'm gonna do it when it's time. If you do the golden one, it feels like so kind of last second, like, oh, we're not gonna win. Well, actually, I'm gonna do this now. It's like it feels kind of like scrappy towards the end. Mm-hmm. Oh, it definitely needs to. Mm. It's usually not that impactful. Yeah. 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 Mm. Yeah. I think at least I mean this. Yeah. I think what I would say for the golden, I don't mind the idea of the golden, but I have one caveat. I would say you can have a golden, but it can only be whatever player is having the best game that one game. Mm. Yeah. It could fit. Okay. But what if they retire? Then who will it be? Mm. Oh, you need the headlines. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but it's also once every decade. Maybe you can only use it on one player at a time. I think at that point it's a dartboard. No, no.
Hour number 2 of the program. We welcome you in. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Chris Schubert here with you. Got you for another hour here on the Tuesday edition of the show. We appreciate you however you may be listening to us, whether you are on the radio side, the AM 1060, or KSLX HD2, 100.7 HD2. You're joining us on YouTube. You're joining us via the variety of social media platforms that we stream the show, the app. There's a lot of different ways. So I don't want to hear any excuses that you weren't able to catch the show. We're with you wherever you want to go.
There's that. There's the podcast, too, afterwards.
Right, there's the podcast. You're sitting at your desk. You're like, oh, Chris, I can't have my phone at my desk. Guess what? Just go to the website. You can listen right there.
Got chunks designed for you.
Right. I mean, there's zero excuse for you to not only be listening to the show, but to join the show. 480-864-1060 is the phone number. You can also join us on the YouTube side of things as well. I am in the process because it is that time. Corey's got his lunchbox out, which means I can start ordering my lunch because that means we are closer to the end of the show. So it's funny. We call the show the lunch break because we are getting to you while you are on your lunch break, and it is our lunch break. Yet the irony is I don't get to eat my lunch until the show is over.
Yes.
So I then have to take a lunch break from the lunch break.
That's right.
That's the irony of all of this.
Hey,
But
someone had to do it.
somebody's got to do it, and that's what they pay us for. So we appreciate you joining us here on the lunch break during your lunch break. Tonight, we will get the second to last edition of the college football playoff rankings. The last will be after conference championship weekend, where we will get the final 12-team bracket, the seeding, and everything that comes with that. And we are living in an era, we are living in a world where this very much matters for Arizona State. This very much matters for the Sun Devils, and they have to win on Saturday for it to ultimately matter, but they are still mathematically alive for this. It is very much still on the table, so it is all in front of them. It is all a possibility for them on Saturday if they win the Big 12 championship. So tonight, we will get the next version of the college football playoff standings. I told you a little bit in hour number one of the show of what we can expect, that they are going to place ASU and Iowa State basically right next to each other. That wherever ASU is, they are going to put Iowa State right behind them in the standings, because what that is going to be is the hedge of all hedges. And it is basically to say whoever wins the Big 12 title, you're basically in this clump right now. If certain results around you open the door, we'll move you up. But for right now, this is where you are going to be. And I have some bad news for everybody. I fully expect that when we get to tonight and we get this next version of the college football playoff, I believe we are going to see Boise State still be in front of ASU and Iowa State, for that matter, that they are going to have them in front. So Austin Mock for The Athletic does this every week, where he predicts the college football playoff rankings, and he has ASU at 15. He, like we said, has Iowa State right behind them at 16, and has Boise State 11-1. Boise State, the Group of 5 conference championship leader right now, not the winner. They have to beat UNLV, who's 23rd in the ranking this weekend, to make sure that they get in. But they are the 4th conference champion, so they would be the team that gets the bye, because they are ranked higher than Arizona State and Iowa State. So that would be the 5th conference championship winner that would get the automatic bid, but they would be seated outside of the top 4. And I got to tell you, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I'll just use what I think is a pretty objective metric to put all this together. Boise State is 11-1. They have the 93rd ranked strength of schedule. Arizona State is 10-2. So yes, Boise State has one more win and one fewer loss than Arizona State. Arizona State has the 42nd strength of schedule. Arizona State is 10-2. Miami is also 10-2. Miami's strength of schedule, 68. Tennessee, 10-2, 7th in the country. 60th ranked strength of schedule. So I know SEC. I got it. I'm aware of the bias. I'm aware of what everybody says about the treatment that the SEC gets, and they get the benefit of the doubt. But strength of schedule evaluates how good the teams that you're playing are playing, and who they play, and what those results all add up to be. And Arizona State is 15th, and they have a better strength of schedule than 11-1 Boise State, who they are directly competing with for the bye. But even if they don't get the bye, seeding-wise, I don't know how Miami's in front of them right now. Tennessee is interesting. There's a lot of cases to be made. But ASU has the 42nd strength of schedule. Is it a great number? No. You got South Carolina, who's directly in front of them, at least according to this projection, at 9-3, because they have the 12th hardest strength of schedule. They've played a lot of tough teams. Okay, that's fair. But ASU has a harder strength of schedule than Oregon, who's 12-0. So strength of schedule either matters or it doesn't. You can't pick and choose when it matters. So far, the committee has told us that is exactly what they are doing, because if you look at the projected college football playoff top 25 after week 14, according to Austin Mock, he's got 12-0 Oregon at number 1, and then you have all the 11-1 teams, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame grouped together. Texas, the 49th strength of schedule, Penn State, 53rd strength of schedule, Notre Dame, 48th strength of schedule. If you want to tell me that those teams' strength of schedule-wise are grouped too closely together, and so you want to use more metrics to break that tie, I can respect that for the committee. But then you have a bunch of 10-2 teams, Ohio State, Georgia, and Tennessee, all 10-2. You got Georgia, who is the 11th ranked strength of schedule. They're 6th. Ohio State, 34th strength of schedule. They're 5th. It's just pick and choose. This committee, ever since it was born, ever since its existence, ever since we started to do the 4-team playoff, certain statistics, certain metrics have been the choose your own adventure variety. They have been the committee chooses to care about something when it benefits the narrative that they want to sell, or it benefits the decision that they've put an SEC team in front, or they gave Ohio State the tiebreaker, or just pick whatever use case there has been since the inception of the College Football Playoff Committee. They pick and choose when to use certain metrics, and then when those metrics are then thrown back at them in that same week or in a future week, when they go counter to that narrative, there's just kind of this hand washing, hands get thrown up into the air of, wow, well, there's a lot of different things that go into this. There is no consistency with the college football playoff. I think you're going to see that again tonight. So, yes, at the end of the day, you should care what number ASU gets. You should care where they are ranked in comparison to other teams, because if they don't get one of those buys, it is going to matter with seeding, and that's going to be very important. So see where some of the other teams that are Indiana, Alabama, Miami, the teams that are going to be looking for the at-large berths, see where they end up. That stuff's going to be important. So where ASU is in comparison to them is important. But really, truly, at the end of the day, the thing that is the most important is where they put Boise State and how close Arizona State is to them. I fully anticipate that when we come in here tomorrow, Boise State is still going to remain in front of Arizona State. And it is going to come down to, if Boise State and ASU both win, the committee is probably telling us that Boise State's going to get the bye, ASU is not. If Boise State falters and ASU wins, ASU is going to lock themselves into that bye. They are going to be one of the 4 seeds that doesn't have to play a first-round matchup. So that is the thing to pay attention to here tonight. That is the thing when they go through the ranking. Don't necessarily get upset at the number. Maybe there'll be something that they do that gives us a reason to be upset at the number. To be upset at ASU being, 17 or 15 or 16, wherever they are. They were 16 last week. The number I don't think is going to matter. How close is Boise State to them? And there's an argument to be made to put Boise State, ASU, and Iowa State all next to each other and say, just fight it out. You guys will sort this out with how you play this weekend. There's an argument to do that. It's what I think they probably will do, is keep those teams very close together to make sure that it basically plays itself out to where the committee doesn't have a tough decision. If everybody wins, they can point to their previous rankings and say there's no reason for us to change them. If somebody loses, it is the clearest path in the world. And the committee has shown us over and over and over again, this is what they do. Maybe the top of this matters. I know we're so focused on ASU and where they sit at 15, but there's other stuff that matters here, right? What they do with Alabama, who's got 3 losses, where they put Indiana, SMU, what they do with all these 2-loss teams, Miami, Ohio State, Georgia, Tennessee. All of this matters. All of this matters. Now, according to this projection from The Athletic, they have Oregon, Texas, SMU, and Boise State getting the buys. So Oregon for winning the Big Ten, Texas for winning the SEC, SMU for winning the ACC, Boise for winning their conference and being the group of 5 eligible team, they get the bye. They have ASU in there right now as the 12 seed, but as the last team that gets an automatic bid for their conference championship. And then all the at-larges are Georgia, Tennessee, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, Notre Dame, and Alabama, with the first 5 out being Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Iowa State, and BYU. Iowa State and BYU in this example kind of take care of themselves because BYU is now playing for a championship, and Iowa State would have lost to ASU. So that is how this plays out, at least according to one projection via The Athletic. They've been doing this the entire season. They've been doing this throughout the course of the college football playoff. And like I've said all along, it doesn't really matter until the last one, but what the committee says and how the committee operates on a week-to-week basis does at least give us some insight into their methodology. It does give us some insight into the inconsistencies or what they consistently are looking at, and it does give us a roadmap. And so we'll see tonight. But I'm trying to prime you. I'm trying to prep you now here in advance. ASU is going to be ranked higher than you think they should be. They are not going to be a top 12 team. They're not going to be inside the top 10. They are not going to get the respect that I think they deserve. You think they deserve. They've won multiple ranked games already this season. If they win this Saturday, it will be 3 ranked wins out of their last 4. They would have beaten Iowa State, who's ranked, BYU, who's ranked, Kansas State, who was ranked at the time, Utah, who was ranked at the time. All of these things matter in the big picture. So for ASU, we'll see where they sit when we get to this tonight. But I'm priming you now. They're going to be very close to Boise State. I think Boise State's going to be in front of them, and I would be pleasantly surprised if that wasn't the case. On the other side of the break, are we moving closer to the trade market opening up for the starting pitchers and what that could mean for the Arizona Diamondbacks? We'll do it next here on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back to the lunch break. KDUS AM 1060. Chris Schubert. We got you until the top of the hour. And I will be the first person to admit, I talked about the Golden at Bat story to close hour number 1. We're talking baseball here again in hour number 2, talking about the trade market for starting pitchers. I am very much so trying to just force baseball into the show so that hopefully moves start happening that we can react to, so that we have some content to discuss. So I'm trying to almost like force the issue. You know how like for Christmas, you leave the cookies out for Santa.
Yeah.
As, you know, you're enticing the man to,
Of course.
to come deliver the gifts.
Come on down.
That's what I'm doing. I'm just being like, hey, baseball, we're talking about you.
Well, then who's the spirit of baseball? Is it Ruth?
Well,
Same size as Santa.
all right, hold on here. We'll get to the starting pitching in a second. Hold on. Who would be the Santa Claus?
I'm thinking you do either Ruth or Gehrig.
You bring up a good point with Ruth's size. I need to look this up now. Santa Claus. Well, what does he build as? I got to use it as I need a judge,
That's true.
right? I need to know. What's his height?
Figured he was 6 something.
Santa Claus
We haven't talked in a while.
height. What do we what do you think that his build height is going to be?
They're gonna probably overhype
Okay.
it. I'm gonna say 6'4".
Imagine thinking NORAD didn't do this. NORAD tells me, and that's the North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, Santa Claus is 5'7"
Really?
and weighs 260.
All right.
Now I will tell you,
Wouldn't be bad for JV football.
hold on, the AI correction here, because I'm using Google, they say that Christmas experts at Yes, Santa is Real, because of course Santa's real,
Yeah.
say that Santa's actual height is 6'6", 250.
I like
All right.
the bill of him being just a freakishly tall monster.
So wait a minute, because
Funny.
250, 260. All right, I'll cut the difference with you and call him 255.
Okay.
NORAD says he's 5'7". These Christmas experts say he's 6'6".
That's a foot different.
We need to bridge the gap here a little bit. So we want to call him.
This middle 6'3".
You want to call him 5'11"?
Sure.
We're going to call him 5'11", 250.
All right.
So 5'11", 250 baseball players. This is what I expected to be doing here today.
Are there any actual matches?
I don't know. Let's see. 25 best power hitters under 6 feet tall. I think that's what we're looking for.
Okay,
Santa,
good start.
I would consider Santa a power hitter. That's kind of what he does.
Sure.
So let's look at this here. All right. No, none of these are good. Joe Morgan.
Yeah.
He's no.
Well, because if they're bigger in weight,
Steve-
they're usually super tall.
Steve Garvey. No, give me Jim. No, Craig Biggio. That doesn't count. Ricky Henderson. Rogers Hornsby was 175. That's not going to count.
No.
Not Miguel Tejada. Not Al Simmons, who weighed 190. Pudge Rodriguez was only 205.
Yeah.
I need somebody who.
There's not a lot of twos in MLB.
Okay, all right. Adrian Beltre, 5'11", 220. We're getting closer here. We're getting closer. Yogi Berra was 5'7", 185, just in case you were curious. Carl Yastrzemski, 5'11", 175. Gary Sheffield, no. Mickey Mantle was 5'11". Willie Mays. So, all right, hold on.
We've gone down the numbers rabbit hole.
Mickey Mantle. So this is fascinating radio, but we're here. We're going to do it. We're going to have some fun here. Mickey Mantle was, if Wikipedia would load, he was, you're really not going to tell me Mickey Mantle's height, internet? Okay, whatever. So Babe Ruth, I think, is the good one. Because we're saying Santa is a 5'11", 250, 255.
I guarantee you Ruth in that ballpark.
Ruth was probably in that ballpark. Yeah. I think he was probably. So the spirit of baseball would be Babe Ruth, if we're going to do this analogy. So I am trying to, and I don't know if this segment is really helping, but I am trying to force the issue with baseball. I'm trying to make it to where we have a conversation about some news in baseball. They say Babe Ruth was 215, so I don't know if Ruth's going to.
No.
That's what the internet just told me. So
Maybe, I guess if you consider a 1930 standard.
yeah, I mean,
Not 2024 standard.
that's fine. That's what the internet tells me. So I'm trying to make baseball a thing here on the show because I'd like Juan Soto to sign. I'd like the Diamondbacks to do something. I'd like there to be some buzz. The golden at bat story that we talked about in hour number 1 of the show, Rob Manfred floated out this idea about a golden at bat rule where at any point during the game, the manager of a team can decide, hey, for this at bat, we're not going to allow the number 8 hitter to hit with 2 guys on in the bottom of the 6th. We're going to send up our best hitter, and you can bat out of order. Everything just returns back to normal after the fact. We talked about that in hour number 1. So that certainly is generating some conversation. That is certainly buzzworthy in baseball. Aroldis Chapman signed with the Red Sox earlier today, 1 year, $10.75 million deal. So the relief pitching market's starting to move a little bit. We wondered yesterday when that would start to happen. We know the Diamondbacks are going to try to swim into those waters. The market that hasn't developed yet, that I think the Diamondbacks could potentially find themselves in, they could potentially do something in, is the trade market for starting pitchers. Because we have long said on this show when previewing the offseason for the Arizona Diamondbacks that we think they're going to get phone calls. We think they're going to get asked about what it would take to trade for Zach Gallen. And we laid out that Zach Gallen's going to make about $14 million this year in arbitration. He's a Scott Boras client. Very rarely do those players who are represented by Scott do extensions before they hit free agency. And you wonder if after Corbin Burns signs this offseason, after Max Fried signs this offseason, after all of the offseason moves that we see this winter with starting pitchers and some of the extensions that potentially get handed out, will there be an appetite for the Diamondbacks to pay what it would take to keep Zach Gallen here? Does Zach Gallen want to stay here? All of those questions. And so we wondered aloud, would there be a time and place where Mike Hazen and company start to entertain the idea of moving on from Zach Gallen and recouping something for him? To not just say that he leaves in free agency and, you maybe put the qualifying offer on him or whatever levers that you can pull to get something back for him. You would get more for him if you moved him right now this offseason. Well, the trade market for starting pitchers is moving pretty slowly right now. Not a lot of activity. Blake Snell just signed. Corbin Burns still out there. Max Fried still out there. Garrett Crochet hasn't been moved via the trade market. And I saw a story in Boston this morning where there was a insider who covers the Red Sox talking about where the Red Sox pursuits are and talked about their pursuit of starting pitching and how they're in on Corbin Burns and how they're in on Max Fried, but then chose to add that the Red Sox are also paying attention to if Jones in Pittsburgh becomes available, Zach Gallen becomes available, if some of these cost-controlled, somewhat, starting pitchers become available via the trade market, is that an appetite? Because after Max Fried signs, after Corbin Burns comes off the board, you got Jack Flaherty, you got Sean Manaea. That's really about it at the top of the market. And so will teams balk at the prices that we see that Corbin Burns gets, that Max Fried gets? You just saw Frankie Montas get $17 million. Matthew Boyd got $14.5 million. What is Sean Manaea going to ask for? What is Jack Flaherty going to ask for? What is Corbin Burns going to ask for? I think that yearly value is going to start with a 3. And so do you get to a place where you say, you know what, I'd rather not spend $30 million on a starter. I'd rather tap into my prospect system and trade for Zach Gallen or trade for Jared Jones or trade for somebody else, a Garrett Crochet, and extend him. That's a better use of my prospects and then ultimately my dollars than it is giving $30 million a season to Max Fried or to Corbin Burns, who's on the other side of 30. Those are some of the questions that teams are going to have. And so because Corbin Burns is still out there, because Max Fried is still out there, the trade market, the trade phones are going to be moving pretty slowly. They are going to take some time to materialize. When they do, when those phone calls start to be placed, I have a really decent feeling that Mike Hazen's phone is going to be ringing. And this organization is going to have to make a really tough decision. They're going to have to decide if they think that they are better off going for it this season with Zach Gallen and risk him walking away in free agency because he reaches a number that they are uncomfortable with. Or do they get out now, at least acquire something for Zach Gallen while they still have Merrill Kelly in the building, while they have Eduardo Rodriguez, while they have Jordan Montgomery, while they are continuing to develop Brennan Pfaadt, when they've got some pitchers in the minor league system that could come up over the next couple of seasons, and maybe they ask for a starter in return that's further away and free up $14 million to attack the rest of this offseason with the other needs that we know that this team could have. Because they're not the only one, but the Diamondbacks have been quiet right now. Again, they're not the only one. It's been quiet mostly across the board, and we're waiting for something to happen. It's why we're talking about this here today. I'm maybe trying to force the issue a little bit. But at some point, they are going to jump into the mix. At some point, they are going to join the fray. And at some point, these conversations are going to be had. And I think we'll learn pretty quickly what they think the right course of action is. So are we any closer? No. Corbin Burns still out there. Max Fried still out there. And I think all the teams that would pivot to the trade market, that would pivot to maybe overpaying for a one-year player like Zach Gallen, are going to see the Corbin Burns, Max Fried, Jack Flaherty, Sean Manaea tier through before they pivot to the trade market. On the other side, the post-Week 13 lunch break power rankings in the NFL, where I think the NFL sits after 13 weeks. My top 10 teams next. The lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Welcome back to the show, the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. I have placed the lunch order. We are ready to go.
All right.
Now, the question we have to answer here really quickly
Yes.
is, does the order show up before we get off the air? Because this has happened before where
Yeah.
the driver calls me and I can't take the call. We're in the middle, and not their fault. They don't know what we do around here.
How close are they?
I haven't even gotten the text that the order's
Well, how far away is the building?
where I'm ordering food from.
Yes.
It's around the corner. Oh,
Mm,
I take it back. The estimated arrival time,
Okay.
according to the app
Gotcha.
for this place, and it is the same place that we talk about all the time,
Got it.
is 1:02.
Oh, okay. Over under?
I hope it's. I actually hope it's later. I hope it's 1:05.
But-
Very rarely do people root for their food to show up later than
Yes.
the estimated arrival time. This is one of those scenarios where I might have to send you the signal to be like, hey, can you just go?
Yeah, I'll get you.
Can you go get the door?
Yeah.
Because the delivery instructions for this place says leave it at the door.
Okay.
Now, I think there's a difference between leaving it at a door like at an apartment complex or a house. When you leave it at the front door of our building,
Yep.
if I was a driver, I'd feel a little weird about it. Like
Yeah.
it feels a little off.
Well,
You're
'cause
like,
if it's a home, you can like knock on the door.
Right.
But as
This-
a business,
is this really, you said leave it at the door. Is this the door you mean? Like you really want me to leave it right out here outside? So I understand why I get those phone calls. But I'm hoping, because right now the order is still in the received phase.
Perfect.
So I think we're right on pace here to be just fine and not have a problem. Now, we'll see. The other day when we did this, they called it like 12:53. We were in the middle of the last segment. I couldn't answer the phone.
well, if that happens, you can answer. I'll go on air for you.
Okay, or we could maybe just make it a bit and just do the phone call on the air. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities there, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. It is after Week 13. Week 14 in the NFL is going to start on Thursday. We use today to reset the picture. We use Tuesdays as our reset day. Here is where I think the NFL stands after Week 13 in the NFL. Here are my top 10 teams. It is the post-Week 13 edition of the Power Rankings. We have honorable mentions, as we always do. These honorable mentions are going to seem extremely familiar to you because we've added a team, but it's the same teams basically as it was last week. Our honorable mentions: the Houston Texans, the Seattle Seahawks, the Washington Commanders. Washington snapped their losing streak. You can say, okay, you're feeling good about the direction that they're going in. The problem with that, they beat the Titans. I know they blew them out. They did exactly what you would expect them to do, what you would want to see from them. But it was still the Titans. They have struggled as of late. So we move them back into the honorable mentions. They're going to sit here. Seattle, winners of 3 in a row, full control of the NFC West. I know it was the Jets this past week, but they did have to come back on the road. So they moved into the honorable mentions. They still are on the outside looking in, but they did move into the honorable mentions. And the Houston Texans, still here. I couldn't find a reason to move them in over a couple of these teams. And really, the one spot that's up for grabs right now, I think on a regular rotation, is probably the number 10 spot. And you're going to be shocked to hear who the number 10 team is, but I have no choice at this point. So number 10 this week in the post-Week 13 Power Rankings, the Baltimore Ravens. That's right. I moved them all the way down to just barely into the Power Rankings. And I can hear you now. Chris, come on. They played the Eagles. It's a good team. You probably have the Eagles really high in the Power Rankings. I do. I do have the Power Rankings pretty high this week. Or the Eagles pretty high in the Power Rankings this week. But the Ravens, time and time again, don't get that marquee win. And so at some point, you're kind of a paper tiger. Your record is good. You're a good team. You're on pace to make the playoffs. But when you get to the playoffs and you play those good teams, I'm not so sure I can buy you as one of the legitimate teams in the NFL. And to me, the legitimate teams in the NFL, the top 4, maybe the top 5 this week, Baltimore Ravens not there for me just yet. They are number 10. The Los Angeles Chargers in at number 9. They got gifted the game by Kirk Cousins and his 4 interceptions and the pick 6 and just a disaster class from the Atlanta Falcons, who at 6-6 still are holding on to the top spot in the NFC South. But this Los Angeles Chargers team, there's something about them. It's gritty. It's not always pretty, but they are doing what they normally don't do. Chargers teams in the past don't win the close games. They have all the breaks go against them. They lose the one-score games because of the back-breaking, boneheaded mistakes. This year, that's not happening. Is Justin Herbert lighting the world on fire? No. Is he in the MVP conversation? No. But he might be playing his best brand of football because he's just doing what he's being asked of by his coaching staff. You have a coach in Jim Harbaugh that has his team prepared. They're not making silly mistakes. They are aggressive when they need to be. They have an identity. And sometimes when you have all the talent in the world and things go sideways for you, you're seeing it in Jacksonville, you're seeing it in Cincinnati, you've seen it the last couple of years with Herbert in LA. It's because the team really lacks an identity. And I think Jim Harbaugh has brought an identity to this football team. We're going to play really good defense. We're going to run the football. We're going to control the line of scrimmage. We're going to play gritty, kind of old school football. And oh, by the way, we have an extremely talented quarterback where if you are going to give us trouble with those things, we're just going to be able to beat you through the air as well. That's an identity. That's something that the team can believe in. And the team has believed in it here so far. And it has led to them being, 8-4. And they went into Atlanta and they took care of business. Speaking of taking care of business, it was also not pretty. But it was not pretty in the high-scoring variety. As last night, the Denver Broncos held on to win 41-32 over the Cleveland Browns as Jameis Winston is the gift that keeps on giving. He just continues to provide just moment after moment. And the Broncos, it's the reason why we picked them as the 5-point play in the Schubert 6. And we kind of got lucky with the pick 6 to help us cover. We'll talk about that in the leftovers here to close the show. Because, yes, I'm going to take a victory lap. Don't think I forgot about it. But they just find ways to win. That's what they do. They find ways to win football games. And it's not pretty, but they're well coached. Bo Nix can sling it. Is it the best at times? No. He's a rookie quarterback. He takes his lumps. He makes some mistakes. But he also can throw the ball to Mims for a big 93-yard touchdown. He can do both of those things. The Denver Broncos at number 8. Number 7, the Green Bay Packers. I love this Green Bay Packer team. The problem is they're third in their division. So not only are they not going to win the division right now and play the home playoff game, they're not even going to be the top wild card that comes out of their division because they're third in the division. Now, that's not their fault, but at some point I have to look at this through the vacuum of what type of run can you go on in the postseason? You're going to have to go on the road a bunch. You're not going to get a home game probably the rest of the way in the postseason. That's tough. And so they're good. If they can close the gap on Minnesota, if they can maybe open the door for Detroit, that would be really something. That would get me to move this team even higher up the board. At number 6, at some point, you just have to throw out all the caveats. You can no longer say the way they win football games. You can no longer say, yeah, but the wheels are going to fall off at some point. You can say, yeah, but you at some point, after 12 or 13 games, you have to take the yeah buts and you throw them in the trash can. And you just take a team at what they are. The next 2 teams in the rankings, the teams at number 6 and number 5, I'm doing that this week. I'm throwing out all the yeah buts from the previous weeks. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the number 6 team in the NFL. They went into Cincinnati as 3-point underdogs, and they won a shootout. Now, they were dominating most of that game. The final score was 44-38. It was closer score-wise than it was actually on paper. But they went in there, and Russell Wilson threw the ball all over the place. They ran the ball extremely well. Russell Wilson is looking like the old version of himself. Mike Tomlin looks like a genius for making that decision when he did, because the Pittsburgh Steelers keep winning football games. And don't look too quickly. They are winning the AFC North. Ahead of Baltimore, ahead of Cincinnati. They are your leaders of the AFC North, and they have a nice cushion right now because of the way that they have played. They are number 6, and you can guess it based on what I said about Pittsburgh. Number 5, Minnesota, man. And you know what? I used to use this as a yeah, but I'm now going to flip it and use this as the reason why I like this team so much. They've been through everything this year. Losing their starting quarterback in the preseason with J.J. McCarthy, having to turn to Sam Darnold, going on the run that they did to start the year, then dropping a couple of games, people thinking that they fell down to earth, and then they just keep rattling off wins. Are they pretty? No. Do they look like one of the best teams in football? No. But when it comes to crunch time, down to 19-6 to the Arizona Cardinals, they came back. playing one of their worst offensive games of the season against Jacksonville, will take 4 field goals and will win the football game. It doesn't matter what situation they find themselves in. It doesn't matter what deficit they're in. It doesn't matter who they're playing, how well or poorly they're playing. They find ways to win. They find ways to get it done. They are the number 5 team in the NFL. Number 4, we've made a change. I'm going to drop this team. Yeah, they're winning. They're just like Minnesota. Yeah, they're just like Pittsburgh. They're supposed to be better than this, and they're not. And at some point, they will be better than this. At some point, I think they will flip the switch and they'll get healthy and it'll look like it's supposed to, but it hasn't. And it took a botched snap to have them survive against the Raiders. So the Kansas City Chiefs are number 4. So now we get into the top 3. The highest they've been all season, because I'm a believer. The Philadelphia Eagles are at number 3. They were cast aside, they were written off, and all they have done is brought in Saquon Barkley. They've improved as an offense. He's getting MVP consideration. The defense is playing out of this world. Jalen Hurts is playing well. They won on Sunday against Baltimore without Devonta Smith. They are the second best team in the NFC right now. It is Detroit, number 1. And then it is the Philadelphia Eagles right now as the number 2 team in the NFC. And boy, would I love to see a Lions-Eagles NFC championship game. Sign me up for that. Number 2, they are the class of the AFC. They've locked up their division. They have beaten, and they are the only blemish on the Kansas City Chiefs record. Josh Allen is probably the leader in the clubhouse for the MVP. And they welcomed in a San Francisco team that needed that game to save their season. The environment was very favorable to Buffalo with the weather. And they just went out there and took care of business and beat the brakes off of the 49ers. The Buffalo Bills are the number 2 team in the NFL for me after week 13. At number 1, there's no change. Yeah, it took a boneheaded coaching decision for you to survive, but I give everybody one of these passes throughout the year, and I haven't used one in a couple of weeks for the Detroit Lions, so I'll use it here for the Detroit Lions to stay as the number 1 team. So to recap, our honorable mention, the Washington Commanders, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Houston Texans. The top 10 this week, the Baltimore Ravens at 10, the Los Angeles Chargers at 9, the Denver Broncos at 8, the Green Bay Packers at 7, the Pittsburgh Steelers at 6, your top 5, the Minnesota Vikings, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Philadelphia Eagles, the highest they have been all season, the Buffalo Bills, and the Detroit Lions at number 1. That is your post-Week 13 power rankings in the NFL as we move closer and closer to playoff time. We move closer and closer to this stuff kind of solidifying. I don't know how much change we'll see in the top 3 or 4 down the stretch, but the back part of this, I think, can change at a moment's notice. I am going to check on the food delivery here during the break, make sure it didn't get delivered too early. And on the other side, we are going to do the leftovers, all the stories that we didn't get to. We'll do it next here on the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Oh, boy. Happened exactly as we said it was going to happen.
Delivered as soon as the break started,
Literally
or
as the break started. And
no.
so the app tells me that, hey, the delivery is now going to be here 12 minutes earlier than we
Oh
originally
wow,
told you.
what a blessing.
So I then had to run downstairs, and the group that I normally eat lunch with, they're already down there eating. I said, hey, guys, could you do me a favor? Kind of in the middle of something up here.
No.
Just keep an eye on the door for me.
No.
If the order from the place that I will not mention gets here, could you just pretend to be me and just grab it for me, please? Thank you. So I have a missed phone call.
Okay.
Literally, as we were coming back, I got a phone call. I'm not
Nice.
answering it
Yeah.
because I have a army of people down there that should be able to take care of it for me, and my food should be down there when we get off the air.
All right, let's hope it's all in the bag.
And it's right, because we've had a problem with this place before where it has not been correct.
Oh no, I'm not saying the making the food's the issue. I'm saying, like, you know, a payment for getting your food to you.
Oh, I think we're okay. I've just been told that it has been left in a safe location. That's what I've been told. That's what I've been
okay.
told. So I believe my food is in the building, and I will be able to take my lunch break from the lunch break here when we get done. But we are not done. We have the leftovers to take care of. And if you thought I was going to do a whole 2 hours today, and I was not going to take the victory lap at some point, and I wanted to do it to open the show, but just too much stuff going on in Suns land, a lot of stuff to get to. The Browns last night helped us out. Jameis Winston threw a pick six, and the Broncos won the football game 41-32. Now, we need that calculator out again, because 41 minus 32 is 9. We took the Broncos minus 5.5, which means for the first time in a couple of weeks, we've had a very good week with the Schubert 6. 4-2 is where we ended up. We got our 6-point play. We got our 5-point play. We hit our 3-point play and our 1-point play. We got I think it's 15 or 16 points out of a possible 21. If you tailed us, if you followed our plays, if that's what you do when we give these plays out, if you follow them correctly and you know, the 1-point play you put the least on, the 6-point play you put the most on, we ladder it, you would have made some money this weekend by following the Schubert 6. So that's good news, gets us back to 500 for the season, and we look to continue our run. It was 3-3 last week, a 4-2 week this week. Yes, I am still angry at the Bears for not even attempting the field goal to force overtime, because we could very easily be in here talking about what was a 5-1 weekend. So we were all over it. I think the best thing we decided to do with the Schubert 6 is make the pivot from just picking spreads and putting in the touchdown props and putting in the totals and just having fun with it. And it's what I do on the weekends anyway. I'm not just betting these spreads. I'm betting totals. I'm betting player props. You know, I'm taking touchdown stuff. So I'm covering this on a pretty regular basis. So we made the decision to fit these things into the Schubert 6, and we are doing well since we've made that decision, since we tried to turn things around. So we were going to get to this at some point after the Broncos did us a solid last night with that backdoor pick 6 to help us cover the 5.5 against the Browns. And the game itself, it was teetering on, we were going to lose outright to where we were barely going to cover to where we weren't going to cover. It was just a roller coaster ride throughout the course of that entire game, but it ended up with us covering. And so it is a 4-2 weekend for us in the NFL. And we will be back at it again on Friday. So we have even more days to prep this week. We had to do these picks last Wednesday ahead of Thanksgiving. So we have a couple more days before the next edition of the Schubert 6. We'll hope to keep things rolling, but a 4-2 weekend for us. So if you did decide to tag along and follow us with the picks, congratulations. We had ourselves a good weekend this past weekend. We talked yesterday when we did the NFL Rewind, the hit that took place in Jacksonville against Trevor Lawrence, Al Shahir for the Texans, and the hit that saw him get ejected from the game. He has been suspended by the NFL for 3 games for that hit. And I don't want to get into the suspension. I'm sure it'll be appealed, and it may go down to 2 games or go down to 1 game. I think 3 games is incredibly reasonable. I would not have had a problem if they decided to suspend him for the remainder of the season. He's somebody who has one hit like this basically every week. And so at some point, the NFL has to step in. The quarterback did everything that you're supposed to do there in sliding, and it was a cheap shot. It's the only way to describe it. It was a cheap shot that has no place in the NFL. The NFL is trying to legislate that stuff out of the game, and we can have a lot of conversation about some of the ticky-tack stuff that gets called on quarterbacks in the pocket. One thing I think we can all agree on, that hit has no place in the game. That hit is dangerous. That hit is scary. That hit could end somebody's career. It could do long-lasting damage. There's no place for that stuff in the NFL. What I am more disappointed in, and if you have not seen the clip after I talk about it here and after we get done, do yourself a favor and go seek it out. Because DeMeco Ryans, the head coach of the Houston Texans, was asked about the suspension, the hit, everything yesterday. And I need to use words that are safe for air and safe for the radio. I found his answer to the questions that were asked of him about this hit to be laughable. Laughable. I understand as a coach, as a defensive guy, as somebody who makes those types of plays, right, who was a hard hitter when he played. I understand as a coach going to bat for your player. And I understand you're not going to throw your player directly under the bus. But the lengths at which DeMeco Ryans blamed the Jags for escalating things after the hit happened, blaming Trevor Lawrence for the way that he slid, it's, again, the only word that I can use is laughable. It's a joke. I get it. You want to defend your player. You can thread the needle of defending your player, sharing the responsibility that he has in all of this, starting all of this, while also not throwing the Jags completely under the bus. You're going to tell me that all of that is Trevor Lawrence's fault for the way that he slid? You're telling me that the escalation that happened after the fact is Jacksonville's fault for defending their player? Al-Shahir got thrown out of the game, and after getting thrown out of the game, threw his helmet off and decided to continue to go at other players on the Jags and on the sidelines. In fact, it was so important, that moment, that it was a part of the explanation from the league as to why he was suspended for 3 games. Because he showed zero remorse, showed zero sportsmanship. After getting thrown out for what was a clearly egregious foul that he should have been thrown out for, his reaction was to incite more back and forth. So I'm sorry. DeMeco Ryans, I get it. You got to be a coach, and you have to defend your player. You don't have to do that. You don't have to be a joke. And that's what DeMeco Ryans is today. He's a joke. Those comments, absurd. Not Trevor Lawrence's fault. The way he slid is exactly the way you want players to slide. Do we need to have a conversation about players maybe using that to their advantage to draw those penalties? Yes. That's not what happened there. And so we are not going to tell Trevor Lawrence to be better, which is one of the phrases that DeMeco Ryans used. We're not going to say that the Jags sideline has to be better. I said it yesterday. Shout out to Evan Ingram. Dirty play. His quarterback got taken out. It showed very quickly what everybody in that room thinks of Trevor Lawrence, because Evan Ingram immediately went after Al-Shahir for the play. So if you have not seen the comments, if you have not seen what DeMeco Ryans said, do yourself a favor. Seriously, do yourself a favor and listen to them, because I am trying to do them justice. I'm trying to give you the emotion that I felt while watching this, but do yourself a favor. Seek it out, because I think you're going to have a very similar reaction when you hear what DeMeco Ryans said, because, again, it's a joke. Laughable. I understand you're not going to want to throw your player under the bus. There's a better way to do things. You want to talk about being better, DeMeco Ryans? How about you be better? How about you be better in the way you handled it? Because, honestly, the way you handled it tells me that you're probably okay with things like that, and that's a problem. It's not a good look. Not a good look for DeMeco Ryans, a coach that I like. Did a great job in year 1. They're kind of facing some adversity here in year 2. C.J. Stroud struggling in year 2. They had that happen yesterday. Handled poorly across the board. That's going to do it for us here on the Tuesday edition of the show. We appreciate you joining us. Producer Corey, thanks to you for all you do. We are back again tomorrow for the Wednesday edition of the program. Everybody, make it a great rest of your Tuesday. See ya!